All right, here we are, another Elements of Marketing. In fact, Chris Brull, you'll be happy to know this is Elements of Marketing number 14. How about that?
Wow.
Yes. Here's a funny bit, is that Element of Marketing number 13 crashed and burned, and we never got off the launching pad. So we're going to have to go back to 13 and a half. Anyway, Chris Brull is the CMO of Kawasaki. I'm delighted to have him here. Chris is in the book, CMO's Periodic Table, and he leads off the category of internal elements. And I think this is a really important topic and a topic area. So Chris, I'm so glad you could join me. We're going to talk about building trust, and we're going to talk about it both the power of building trust internally, and I think we can really easily go into building trust with a consumer, because in many ways it's the same set of circumstances and process, and you've been able to do both during your career. So Chris, welcome to your first blab.
Thank you, Drew. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun, and I hope I'm able to blab away as best as I can for you.
You will be able to blab with the best of them. I am confident of that. So Chris, everybody knows Kawasaki, but they don't know Chris Brull necessarily. They may have read the book, but maybe you could talk a little bit about your career at Kawasaki and how you came to the CMO position.
Well, long story short, this is my 25th year, believe it or not, in marketing. I came agency side. Right after the Gulf War, 1990, I joined J. Walter Thompson, spent a year there, and then spent, almost 10 years at Darcy, Macias, Benton & Bowles with a little bit of Foot Cone and Belding and Bozell mixed in. And Foot Cone actually had the Kawasaki business, which is based here in Irvine, California, Southern California. They had the business all the way through 2004, but in 2003, I was asked to come client side to be the national marketing manager, or as people would call it, the ad manager. From 2004 all the way up till probably 2009, they consolidated all the marketing for under my area. So there was also not only the national advertising, but the retail marketing. We had at the time 1,500 dealers nationwide. We're about down to 1,000. So from 2009 till 2014, I was director of marketing. They continued to put a little trust in me. And not only did we serve the client, which is the customer, our other client, the dealer, well, but we also were serving our ownership, my third client, if you will, the Japanese, globally. So from 2015, I was appointed vice president of marketing, also included into the advertising and marketing mix. All components of marketing were consolidated in my area, including racing, just to add on the other fun part of marketing, activating all the professional racing. So it's been an experience of a lifetime. I feel very fortunate. In closing on my opening is that I have the living, breathing heartbeat of the brand right in my palm. So it's a great responsibility, but also living a case study at the same time. It's truly exciting.
Well, and it's an impressive, both the transition from the agency business to the client side, which I know a number of people make, but not everybody gets from that position into the top marketing position. So kudos to you. And we've established your credibility now. Let's go back a little bit. You mentioned the Japanese, and of course, I worked for the Japanese for almost 20 years, so very familiar with the opportunities and the challenges. Let's talk about how, in some of the seminal moments of building trust, to be able to get to some really innovative marketing programs, the kinds of things that you did along the way to get them to trust you.
Well, I'm going to start at the very simplest form. I never stopped being an agency account person. And let me unpack that a little bit. Yes, when I came client side in January 3rd, 2004, it was great responsibility to now be a client, though at the same time I learned right away that I was just being a client service person, but from a different perspective. And not that you don't have the responsibility of direction and vision and responsible for the finished work, you also realize that you still have a boss. And in this case, from the agency side, that boss was the client as well as the customer. But now the perspective changed a little bit in that even though I'm the client, I'm the decision maker, I had to realize that the ownership, the Japanese, didn't know me. I had to build credibility and trust. And trust is earned over time. They had to feel comfortable that, oh, you're just not an ad guy who's focused just on the advertising. There's the administrative side of the job, budget management, there's leadership, there's inspiring others, there's creativity. Are you going to be able to deliver in a cross-dimensional way, or are you just really interested in doing ads? No different if I was a PR person coming over, they'd probably say, well, he's really going to focus on the PR and not so much on the other side of the business. So I had to realize I had to be a marketing generalist really quick. And not only were all the tools of the toolbox of marketing under me, I had to be an expert in each of those. Now, in varying degrees, I will have to say that the fine arts of PR was something that I knew of well, but I had to dive deep and learn it. Experiential marketing, coming from an ad guy's side, I didn't spend as much time in the field as people that would be in experiential marketing. So I had to self-teach myself in that area. But it probably was a good 5-year run of demonstrating that you're in it, you're focused, that you're willing to understand those disciplines. And the number one thing I had to admit is I didn't know everything. I live by the adage of I reserve the right to be smarter later, and it was a long time since I last walked on water. So when I'm out, say, in those early years, client side, I was at the big Daytona event, Bike Week, or Sturgis, or at racing. I was there just soaking it up and learning. Even though I had the responsibility for a lot of that, I actually reached out to those, whether it be the old chiefs, the experts, and I really built not just consensus, because just because you get consensus doesn't mean that you're moving forward. You have to be brave and risk-taking, but you have to admit saying, I really don't know, but what do you think? And actually build a team with multiple inputs. And then after a while, people are realizing that you're not making the cardinal sin of being the super boss. The world rises and sets on me, and I have all the answers. And then behind their back, they're going, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So I'd be the first one to admit that I don't know, but you know, so come on in and join on the conversation, and let's build this together. The Japanese really, really appreciated that fact, that it wasn't just the outside person coming in with all the answers, that you take a full level of humility. And you have to be humble to say that you're really humble. And though many people say they're humble and they're not, but when you're faced with the reality and you're facing ownership, and you actually have to be able to say, I don't know, but I'll find that out for you. That's 101 out of the book of account management. But the key was following up and delivering at the same time, which is
right. Yeah, you can only get away with that so long. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. You make it. Yeah. You do have to ship eventually, right?
Eventually. So there were a couple of things in there that I thought were interesting, but I want to get to specifics. I remember you and I talked a little bit about how you helped build some credibility and trust by getting the brand into digital, which was a new thing for them. And that was, wait, you don't sell motorcycles that way. And I think that was one of the ways that you started to say, hey, we could innovate here a little bit more. Take us back to that period.
Well, Kawasaki was traditionally outshout by our nearest competitors 2-1, 4-1, Harley 10-1. So when I really started having the lion's share of responsibility for marketing, let's call that 2007, had to realize that the brand was adrift. We were close to number 4 of 4 Japanese marks with a very single-digit share of voice as well as share of market. Those were tough times. And I had to realize that we're not going to do the classic spend a lot of money on TV in 2007, spray and pray. And I realized that after understanding the market, that compared to auto, we're very niche. We're one brand, we're 14 sub-brands. We have at least 26 identifiable targets, even more if you hyper segment them. And we have motorcycles, we have 4-wheels, products, we have stuff that go in the water. You realize that you have to serve a very wide base. And what was really interesting, that if you spend, $500,000 to $1 million on a 30-second TV spot, where am I going to air it? I'm going to air it on Stick and Ball Sports or national media. But how many people actually are even interested in power sports products that are watching national media? Very, very few. We did a study back in 2006 that said in Orange County, which is not a unique, or it's a somewhat unique county compared to the rest of the nation, there is quite a bit of affluence here. So you think a lot of money for a lot of toys. Well, we found out 1 out of every 10,000 households even owns a power sports product. So there's 9,999 people that don't care at all of any interest in our products. So therefore, that's hyper niche. So I realized that we have to find those 1 out of every 10,000. Obviously, it's different throughout the nation, but we have to have a unique conversation with each one of those individuals. How are we going to do it? Not in the traditional way. So we were first mover by experimenting. I call it Area 51 special dark ops, that we had to try out the new way of connecting with people. We were the first power sports brand on YouTube before Google bought them. We were the first to have a platform independent website, first to play around with mobile, first to try a lot of the apps such as, Facebook, Snapchat, Vine, the list goes on. We were first mover because, we were motivated that we had to, and we realized that those riders, those 1 out of 10,000, also loved the community of those apps. And they were talking to all their friends. Check me out. Here I am on my iPhone here, and look at me ride. And then they send that information direct to their other friend. The power sports industry is almost the poster child for connectivity in the digital space. So we just embraced what our customer was doing and gave them more platforms. So that allowed us to be first mover. I have to tell you, it was very difficult to wean the brand off of, national marketing in a traditional sense. Now, nothing ramps up quicker with reach and frequency than TV. We still do it, but we have to do it very tactical if we have a certain message that we have to get out to the masses. And our dealers and our sales team really still have a strong desire to get that national word out because it makes the brand look big, and it does. It makes them feel good that we're telling that broad story. But with limited funds, especially after that dirty disease called the Lehman shock in 2008, the Japanese actually call it Lehman shock like it is a disease. The places where we were running our media actually went away. Out of all the endemic publications, many of them were gone. In fact, personal watercraft, jet skis, we invented the category. Many of those publications and outlets actually went away. So how am I going to engage those customers? Through digital, social, mobile. So it was partly need as well as experimentation all coming together with delivering a very focused message. Because again, who could spot a fake quicker than anyone else? An enthusiast, an expert. So our brand had to have a one-on-one conversation to the point where we're responding to people sometimes real time or no more than 24 hours. Now, in some cases when it has to be like warranty issues, it's a little bit longer than that. But people appreciated that we had that real-time conversation. And our Japanese investors appreciated the fact that, you could talk to far more people one-on-one and have an impactful message with far less money. So we also were able to experiment in different type of video. We were doing content strategy largely before most of the industry did it. Maximum props to our friends at Harley who do it in a sublime way, and they've done it really well, and the European brands. And again, the term content has been around since cavemen were rubbing rocks and sticks together, so it's not like it was new. But we realized for that $500,000 TV spot, I could have maybe 20 different types of stories crafted in 90 seconds to a minute. And here's the other part where we came into content. This was about 2010, 2011. I spent a lot of time at Starbucks. It's the third place. You got home, work, Starbucks, and the fourth is the Apple Store, right? So I was drinking a lot of coffee and eating those big old 480 calorie scones. And then I realized one day, I think it was 2011, 2012, what are those little, looks like lollipops, cake on a stick, cake pops? Well, now I could have a treat, 150 calories, and I could get kind of my fix, and I don't have to sit and eat the whole scone because you can't eat part of the scone. You'll eat the whole 480 calories. And I realized, wait a minute, this is simple. Starbucks figured it out for me. No one's going to sit through a 30-minute, 10-minute, or even a 5-minute video, even though it's shot beautifully. They just want, give it to me broken down into little sound bites, little bite size. So we did cake pop style video. We call them tech videos. Hey, if you want to know about suspension or engine performance, click that little video. You get everything you need in 90 seconds. Now, we might do 10 core features to tell the product story, but you could consume them in the bite-sized mode that you want instead of forcing customers to sit through a 10-minute video. And again, our numbers show that even though we threw a 10-minute video up on YouTube, no one's sitting through that whole thing. So necessity forced us not only to follow a different engagement strategy through digital, but even the way we put together our stories was crafted to a customer on the move. And the best part, and I'm preaching to the choir because it's what digital social mobile does, those customers sent them on to their friends. So they were finding the 1 in 10,000 on their own, which was beautiful. And then the industry definitely started following suit.
So, all right. So in that wonderful explanation of all the innovative things, clearly you were able to build trust with your Japanese associates because this innovative stuff started to work. Now, I'm going to pause for a second on a thought, and then we're going to go back into the next big thing that I want to talk about, which is the Ninja launch. But so when we were working on Panasonic a few years back, we worked with the Do Action Sports Tour. And, you know, we had BMX bikers and skateboarders and so forth. And one of the things that we learned about the skateboarders in particular, but also with the BMX bikers and so forth, was that it wasn't real until they had captured it on a camera, which was interesting, that, either on a video or thing, and that they could share it. We ended up with a program called Share the Air, and loan cameras to people so they could capture it all. But I was curious that there is in your category this notion of documenting your trick or documenting your bike. I just got to imagine there's just loads and loads and loads of people who want to show their bike, their jet ski, their cool trick that they've done. Is that transfer right over to the motorsports business?
Yes, and I'll say how. Some people in our industry will say the motorcycle was the original mobile media. It's been around, 110 years. You could also say the car is too, or anything with wheels. But people have typically ridden our product. And again, we'll say motorcycles. It's now 4 wheels and jet skis, but I'll just say bikes. People have ridden those for many things. The wind in the face, dirt in the face, sand in the face, because you could take it off-road. Hopefully not the asphalt in the face, because you have to have a helmet. They've ridden it for why? Escape, or to get away, or to ride with their friends and their group. But it's also a badge. Harley actually literally has a badge for a logo. And it means you associate with something sometimes bigger than yourself. You're part of a movement. You're part of a tribe, Mr. Godin and friends. You're part of a lifestyle. In fact, many people say who are hardcore riders, I work just so I can ride. It's a means to an end. I need to get out. And a hunter will say the same thing. A farmer who gets his job done quicker on our product could go and do something that they love. Now, a lot of that kind of badging is a sense of belonging. Some of it is fashion statements. Some of it's showing off. But in all those scenarios, and I can make many more scenarios, those different types of walks of lifestyle, people inherently want to share. So, Drew, you're my buddy. Hey, I got my new Ninja ZX-10R. Check me out on the track. In fact, I got a GoPro, and because you're into it, you want to see how it was carving through the actual turns, if you will, a high embankment or whatnot. And you get fired up. And that content gives you deeper access, not only to see how I'm doing it, now you're almost along for the ride with me. That's what we found. It's another way of sharing in a way that wasn't shared before, because before I could only have still photography or film, which was very expensive, or the written story. Right. Yeah. So, but now you can go ride along with me, which is fabulous. Imagine you sitting with me through a video through the Smoky Mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains, and there I am going to my favorite hunting stand. Well, you couldn't be there, but you now see through the advent of that film a context of my experience that you never would have before. So talk about belonging. You're now sharing the ride. And many people will joke about GoPro saying it's actually Go Amateur, which means they're teasing. But the Go Amateur means you just have greater access to what I'm doing and what I'm sharing. And there's a sense of pride. Whether you're able to put it together beautifully in iMovie or have a professional do it, it's good enough just to post it online, just to say, look at me, look at what I'm doing, how proud I am, wish you were here to share. Or, hey, Drew, here's what I'm doing. This is what we're going to be doing together. Gets people pumped up. And it's a terrible analogy, but we're addicted to this stuff. And it's no different than any other addict of something that normally what they want to do, they can't wait till they get their next fix. And what they typically do, they'll share that fix. Drew, I'm hooked. Here, take a little some. Join this with me. And then we feed on it. I mean, that's the enthusiast mentality, and that's what our industry is all about. And that content is able to feed that addiction to ride, is what we call it.
Interesting. And well, I'm wondering how we all lived before GoPro, but it's certainly one, buy GoPro stock, and two, it's hard to see helmets now without a GoPro attachment, right? It's really taken over that industry. So, all right. So we've talked a lot about the digital innovation, and in my interpretation of all of that work helped to build trust of Chris Brull and his leadership as a marketer, to the point that you did something that hadn't been done in the U.S. You actually launched a global product here. I think I seem to recall.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So tell me about that, because that must have been a big deal to sell that idea and to get them to launch it here as opposed to in Japan, and to do it at Times Square and take over that. Let's go back a little bit on what it took and why you think you were able to sell that idea, and then we can talk about what you did.
Well, the seeds of that trust, and you're hitting on it, was obviously with ownership. The number one part of trust, and again, this was communicated back to me by my superiors as well as the ownership, our Japanese friends. Willing to take a risk is certainly one of them, but willing to change. I was classically trained as a marketer, agency guy. 1990 was my first year in business, which it's not Mad Men, but I have to say some of my bosses were at the last steps of the Mad Men era when I joined. But I was willing to change. I was willing to adapt. As I opened up, I was willing to be humble to say I didn't know, but I realized quickly that I can't just stay with the tried and true. And the tried and true was traditional product launch. Well, let's get the list out. I got to get myself a TV spot check, a print ad check. I heard the web is kind of cool. Give me some of those banners and buttons, okay? I got to have a press intro. Those are all important pieces, but I realized, as I said, with a hyper enthusiast niche market, that we had to have a way to be relevant. And that trust that I changed in those years leading up until 2012 is that, well, he adapted, he changed our marketing, and he didn't put it he made it we, and it was us, because it wasn't the Chris Brull show. If it was, I would have been long gone. I was able to empower a lot of other folks, whether it be on the two-wheel side, the four-wheel side, or the jet ski side, saying, hey, this approach is going to get your products recognized, the digital that we talked about. Well, when it came time to taking a big swing was with our Ninja product. We had a Ninja 300, a smaller bike, looks like the race bikes, real cool, fairing, you're leaning over race bike, look-alike. And then we had a Ninja 636, 636 cc's. It's a legitimate race bike. You just take it right out of the crate. You can go racing. Obviously, you'd have to take the mirrors and the blinkers off of it, but it's out of the crate. You can pretty much do it. So both of those products were being launched together in the United States as well as in Europe. So what we asked the ownership to do, and literally back in Japan, these were the first wave of many ninjas that have since followed in 2013, 14, 15, and 16, where we were reinvigorating the Ninja line. The Ninja line has been around since 1984. In fact, the first Ninja was ridden by Tom Cruise in Top Gun. The Need for Speed. He was riding that first Ninja. Well, these were the first of the new breed, And we said, we can't just do even just a traditional campaign or just a digital campaign. We have to break out in something that is uber experiential. Well, what our product deserved is to be at the heart and soul, the pinnacle of marketing or of media. Well, we're better to do that than in Times Square, the heart of the media capital of the world, New York City. Well, let's take a shot. Let's be audacious. Let's take a risk. In fact, our brand is considered being an intelligent rebel. We'll let others engineer the life out of their products and for universal appeal. Some build very fabulous products, but ours has always had this intelligent rebel attitude. We're a company that builds bullet trains. We build the fuselage for the Dreamliner. We build rocket ships, aviation. Well, these ninjas are conceived by those same people that are breakthrough products. Well, no better way to launch them than in the heart of New York City. Well, let's be audacious. Let's close down Broadway. Let's do that. Let's close down 2 blocks of Broadway. Let's take a shot. And in fact, let's reveal those right in the heart of Times Square. And in fact, those big billboards, let's put our imagery up there. And let's close it down for 24 hours. Let's put all of our trucks, our brand, our racers. In fact, let's be really audacious. If we do that, let's ride 100 and some ninjas right down Broadway. Let's invite customers and dealers to do it. Let's bring Monster Energy and Oakley and some of our other partners right in the heart and soul. And in fact, do it in such a way that we're not only going to have our customers and our dealers there, but let other New Yorkers come and experience it over a 24-hour period. And in fact, Times Square, it's the city that never sleeps. And in fact, our brand is so vibrant that let's light it up in lime green. And in fact, when we told that story to the corporate CEO back in Japan, he actually said, Chris, if you had told me that you were going to do this in San Francisco at a typical event, which would be well done, of course, I would be a little disappointed, because these products are essentially, we take them as if they're our children. And these are such special ninjas that they're actually breakthrough at the time in the industry in 2012, that they deserve to be almost born or presented right there with the most maximum awareness, with audacious, intelligent rebel approach in New York City. In fact, it gives us great pride to say, yes, let's do that in such a way that'll give us awareness. Now, that story I told was maybe a 2-minute story of what was a 30-minute presentation, but I would have been thrown out of the room if they didn't understand that the years prior to that and the trust that the team and I had put together, that we were caretakers and stewards of the brand, that we had little thing. If I trust you with a little, I could trust you with much. Well, there were little stories of trust that built over the years from 2004, 5, 6, all the way up to 2011 when we were conceiving it, launching in 2012, that they said, Chris, it's completely unorthodox. It's a 7-figure swing. Let's give it a shot. Our product deserves it. That was the backstory that led to why we were able to activate. And they bit down hard and they said, let's go for it. Now, one could stand by and say, well, let's pull that apart. It's only good for the New York DMA. It's only good for the New York customers, only good for the New York dealers. And that's true. It was a one-day event, but it had ripples globally. We also were live streaming. Now, live streaming in 2012 was a little more costly than what you can do with it now with apps, Periscope, and all the other streaming. So we had to hit satellites that were going by. We had to have content. We were broadcasting like we were ABC or NBC, but we did it. And in fact, the content was made in collaboration with our friends at Kawasaki Motors Europe. They have a AMA World Superbike, World Superbike Championship team. So we were able to activate with the pro racer, Jonathan Sykes, with Sykes and Jonathan Rea. He's come years since. Tom Sykes is the rider, sorry. Jonathan Rea won this past year. Tom Sykes won in that era. So you have a championship rider who's proven it on the track. Well, we actually had him, we flew him out. He was there. So people that are in the industry, wow, you brought this top-notch rider here. And he's activating. And they actually created the content shot at the Isle of Man, which is the most intense place that you can ride on the planet. I look it up, Isle of Man. It's the most intense sport bike ride, and it's not, on an oval like in the U.S. or on a track like in Daytona. I mean, this is life or death type stuff. So our imagery was bright and vibrant. So we co-produced it with our friends at Europe. So in stepping back, that trust that was built for all those years enabled us for them to feel comfortable with this wacky band of Kawasaki marketers in the U.S. to actually close down Times Square for an entire day. And 1.2 million customers walked through Times Square on that day, believe it or not. Now, it doesn't mean all of those were motorcycle riders, but we did get the big awareness, but we did activate very locally. We did everything but demo rides. So you can't really demo on Broadway. So it was exciting. It was really exciting shot. And all that digital social mobile that we were talking about earlier was emanating right out of Broadway. 45th and 44th Street, I think, is where we blocked off. So that was the hub, and you can imagine the content that we were pushing out digitally at that time. So it gave us the opportunity. It's
such a cool story, and I'm glad we got a chance to go over it in detail. So I'm here talking with Chris Brull. We're talking elements of marketing, building trust, and I think it's an important one if you're at the beginning of your career in particular. You think that you're a creative guy and you understand marketing and you're just going to go in and you're going to sell a program. And I think what's so important about this story is that it takes time to build trust. It takes but it's funny, you mentioned the Mad Men thing, and I have to tell you a funny story. So I'm a bit older than you. I started in 1979. So and there was a gentleman at this was actually 82 at J. Walter Thompson in New York City. Wow. There was a gentleman who was already in his late 70s.
Oh, wow.
Whose like brother-in-law was a Reynolds, and he had a hip pocket account called the Reynolds app account.
Oh,
and
wow.
every day he came in at 10, at 11:45 he went to the same restaurant where there was a phone on the table and a martini waiting for him. He drank his 3 martinis. He came back to the office at 2:00 and then proceeded to sleep from 2 to 4. Yelled at his 75-year-old assistant, "I'm leaving," and then walked out of the office. So it was that still existed when I got to New York, but it is obviously we've come a long way.
And then he took a train back to the Hamptons, where he got his big old plush home, right?
Yeah, well, he did fine. Eventually, he retired, and of course, the Reynolds Wrap business went away with him. Yeah. But anyway, so we're going way back here, and I tell that story because this business has changed a lot. The marketing world has changed a lot, and those of us who have survived have adapted along with it. So let's talk about, we've talked about building internal trust. I'd like to talk a little bit about building external trust and talking about, maybe we've talked a little bit about motorcycles. Maybe we could go into a different category of yours, or we could go back to a particular story, but I'm interested in how do you build trust with your 26 different targets for all your different product lines? Let's focus on one and tell me a different way of doing that.
Well, again, this is all marketing 101, knowing your customer. And with each of those, you are tempted to put them in tiers or aggregate them or combine them. For the Ninja ZX6R, the 636 I was talking about, we have 6 different targets that really ride that product. But since they all ride the same green bike, let's all treat them as one, because budget dictates that. You do your segmentation study, and then you realize, well, there are 6 different segments, and they don't really mix with each other, but the tendency is just to aggregate it up. Guys that ride fast on a track, tell the agency, let's do a campaign for that. Well, if I do that, I might hit 2 of the 6. And then I disenfranchise the other 4. And then the other 4 groups say, well, I have to tell you, Kawasaki just doesn't get it. And that's still a challenge to this day because, again, there are some products in our lineup. We sell upwards of 65 plus different products. Some children don't get it fed as much as the others. And I'm not saying it's perfect because you still have to have your product priorities. But back to the way that we're approaching it is, well, if we're now stepping out of just only a traditional approach, well, now we believe that our number one job is to know the customer as best as we can, and then serve him or her the content that they expect and have that conversation. And when you're looking at driving down the cost, not the quality, what you make, you're able to engage them with a conversation, whether it be a video or a certain kind of engagement out in the field that actually shows that you get them. Well, then you're serving them that content and that conversation that isn't just locked up in a traditional approach, and they begin to trust you. Wow, did you see what was on Cowie's insert digital footprint? Wow, they actually made some content for me. I'm going to follow up with them. But the key is I can't launch and abandon. I have to have a continuing conversation with them. So with those 6 sport bike riders, once we start engaging them, we're going to have to follow up. So the trust is built through the follow-up. And again, sometimes we do it well, sometimes we don't. Sometimes the priorities slightly change. But if I do not continue having the team be real to these folks, they just blow right by us. And let's be honest, we don't sell the product in Kawasaki only dealerships. We don't own the Apple store. They're walking into a dealership where there's 5, 6, sometimes 7 different other products that or OEMs that we're competing against. So how am I going to stay relevant at retail? Well, it's not just a sales incentive. I have to be able to hopefully have told the story enough of why Kawasaki, why this product, why now, and do it in a way that resonates with them, that when they walk into the local dealer and the dealer might have a spiff on a Honda or a Yamaha, the customer says, yeah, I appreciate that offer. And assuming our financial offerings are at least close, right. Nothing layering $100 bills on the seat of a product, there is that. That's hard to motivate, but I'm talking a little bit longer term. So if I actually hook them on the brand and the lifestyle and what our product feature actually will better their life or allow them to do what they love better, they might resist that overture from the dealer for the Honda or the Yamaha and say, no, I'm good. That Kawasaki really fits my needs. Now, that certainly ladders up to making sure we build the right product for them. But again, I'm only speaking on the engagement of marketing, not the product development side of marketing.
I have a gentleman logged on earlier and asked and said something about you not having bikes for dessert. He said for desert. Yes, let's address that. Can we just get that off the table?
Well, for bikes, there is the KX line. It's a competition bike. You could ride that off road. People do take it in the deserts in Baja. For sure. We also have 4-wheel product, the Teryx, T-E-R-Y-X. Some people will call it T-Rex, but it's Teryx. It's 4-wheel. Now, there are very strong competitors out there from Polaris and Can-Am that also make those products, but that stuff is definitely desert ready. Our 4-wheel ATVs, we've always had the KFX line. That has been weaning. People have been weaning off that more for the side-by-side products. Side-by-side meaning as a steering wheel, you could sit side-by-side, 2, 4, or even 6. So that Teryx line is definitely something that's definitely ready. Now, then the person come back and say, well, Chris, I haven't seen any of it. Well, there's someone that we could do probably a better job of engaging because they didn't know of our product. But again, you try to do your best to as many people as you can. But we do have a product fit for that.
Yeah, every time I talk to you, Chris, I want to immediately go off-road. I have been dying to get in one of those Teryxes.
We got to get you in it. When you're in
next
time we'll take you riding.
It's killing me. Of course, my wife would kill me if I ever got on a motorcycle. We got to get over that. So we talked a lot about targeting, and a gentleman commented about it going back to agriculture, which I thought was an interesting analogy, nurturing the prospect, building trust and confidence and loyalty. I need a little bit more to understand that analogy, but let's all right, well, we're losing someone.
I'll hit that real quick on agriculture.
Okay, good.
And again, this is all said in humility because I've been humbled so many times. He's absolutely right. He says, go back to agriculture, nurture the prospects, and build trust and confidence. But you also have to be brave enough to go out and plant. And I have to say, planting is tough. You have to till the ground. First of all, you have to decide what product or plants to plant. And then you have to go out there. I'm picturing in my mind the old oxen days, the farmer. Obviously, you have some great products made by some of our competitors, John Deere, that'll till the land for you. But what kind of farmer are you going to be? And that's blood and sweat and tears out there that you're tilling the land. In fact, nurturing is after you decide what to plant. And you have to have a vision. In fact, I'm going for it. And the bravery is a lot of people will tell you, you don't want to plant that. You don't want to go out there. That's going to be a lot of sweat and tears, resources, money, time, people. And I have to say, more times than not, I've certainly taken a risk along with my team, because it's really a we, not an I and a me, but someone has to be a leader that says, no, we're going to go for it. We're going to plant, insert maybe some risky crop, if you will. And more times than not, we took a shot, and we didn't say that we're going to plant cotton and that's all we're going to make, because I have to plant many different types of crops, but we're going to take a shot. And in fact, some of that crop might be a wave of the future, and be brave enough to do it. Then you got to nurture it and see it through. You just don't put the seed in there and then a bunch of the naysayers come. Oh, you picked the wrong crop, Chris. Do you give up? Do you not water it? Do you not fertilize? No, you got to go for it. And sometimes many of those farmers that have switched crops were looked at sometimes foolishly, but actually you got to be brave and realizing maybe those crops I've been planting for a long time. Maybe I need to try something new and different. So you have to be brave and then follow through, and then that builds trust. And then also admit that, man, I was wrong. Some of those crops were wrong, as opposed to pushing blame on the agency. Well, the agency made me plant those crops. Out with those, in with the others, or someone on my team. You got to take ownership.
Well, it's funny, by the way, and one of the chapters in the book is about changing agencies, and my good friend Barbara Goodstein talks about having changed agencies twice and doing the whole review, and basically she concludes no matter what, the agency screwed, which I sort of painfully had to agree with her on. I want to ask you this. So after having written the book, I went back because I knew people were going to ask about some common themes that I saw among a successful marketing execs like yourself. And I identified 4, and we've really, and those 4 are, you're a cool cat, Chris. And then here's the acronym: CATS: courage, artful, thoughtful, and scientific. And we've talked a lot about courage already. So, having that.
Sure.
So that I'm going to say we got that one covered. The next one is artful, and I'm interested in your thoughts on how creativity has played a role. Do you need to be creative yourself? Is it surrounding yourself with creative? Because you've done some creative things over the years, and this notion of artfulness, by the way, is not meant to be that you're artistic. It's that you recognize the value of creativity, that you're artful in your ability to go get creative ideas. How would you say, what's your style when it comes to artfulness, and how important is that in your success?
Well, I know I'm teased many times as being a frustrated creative. I came up agency side in account management, and let's assume we're all born with a certain level of aesthetic. Mine is no better or worse than yours. So it's not like I just there you go. And, so I'm not going to come off and say that mine is better than anyone else is my aesthetic. But I'll start with self-teaching. I learned early on that I had to teach myself a lot, even though I had some fabulous mentors. Don't have time to get into the mentors. But I gravitated to looks and feels. I'm the guy that's going to walk around with my phone and take pictures of images, substrates, signage, even down to a cereal box, pieces of art, because my mind is always on. I'm seeing things in bright and vivid color. And what I'm trying to do at our business here, and even in the industry, remember where's the Wizard of Oz? It opens up black and white, right? Kind of a sea of sameness. No disrespect. Again, the fabulous brands, Harley, Honda, Yamaha, they're very strong. Triumph, Ducati, beautiful stuff, BMW. So, but if you look at all the marketing that's typically done from an imagery standpoint, at least since I joined in 1990 up until recent time, it was a sea of sameness. So it was kind of black and white. But remember when the house fell on the Wicked Witch, and all of a sudden it was bright, vivid Technicolor. I don't know if it was Technicolor back then or not, but it was bright, vivid color. So in my mind, I see things in bright, vivid color, not literally, but proverbially. But I have to tell you, I had to self-teach. I'll read, honestly, and I'm not bragging about it because it's a lot of work, I'll read over 100 books a year.
Wow.
Yours included.
Thank you.
And I will read them cover to cover. Articles, there's a hunger. Now, do I do it as a hobby? Actually, my hobby is nonfiction. I'd rather read about sports figures and World War II or something like that. But for me, I realize that I have a unique living, breathing opportunity to have the heartbeat of the brand in my hand. So I better self-teach myself because I have this opportunity for a short period of time. So I call it walking point. It is my job to walk point. Drew, you heard me say this one time before in many of my briefings. In fact, when you joined the business to help us out, I called it Cowie 101. And I said, Drew, it's for the creative folks, but not necessarily for the people in the department, the creative department. Because everybody, no matter what walk of life you have that you bring to the table here, you touch the creative product in one way, shape, or form. Because creativity is not just the artwork, it's the written word, it's the idea, it's the execution. You could even be very creative financially, obviously, and I say that in a positive way. So for me, that walking point, in those war movies, walking point, you're out there with a gun. It's a very scary place to be because you got to lead. You could get ambushed. You could have your backside shot off. You have to be brave, right? We go back to the C part of it. But I'm searching for fresh, new ways, but I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel either. I'm trying to perfect what we have. You never reach perfection. But also with walking point, you have to have a plan. You have to know where you're going. But with walking point, if you're ambushed, you have to shuck or zig while others zag. You have to have the fortitude to do it. Plus, you have to quickly replot away. You have to be very creative when you're zigging or zagging. Wow, I just planned to do this great thing. The competition totally blew my mind. How about in 07 when Steve Jobs laid the iPhone out on everybody? You got to tell me the people at Motorola weren't realizing, oh my God, or did they stick to their plan and continue to fall off the cliff? You could read into that story where you can. So also with walking point means you're responsible for all those people behind you in the line. And in fact, you got to look, whoa, get yourself back up there, whether it be agency folks. So for motivating actual creatives, you have to have a vivid imagination that leads back to the business, and you have to be able to input them in such a way that you did a lot of the spade work yourself. I call it bad client ads. Now, I'm not going to do my own ads. I know enough just to do crappy iMovie, and I know enough on Photoshop to articulate an idea, because I can't be the type of client that says, well, I'll know it when I see it. Right. Or in the worst position, well, I can't approve it, but I can kill it. I have to be able to vividly give that idea and be able to do it in terms that they could understand, that the media team could understand, the PR team could understand. So I have to know a bunch of different languages and do the homework by whether reading those 100 books a year or being able to stay on the cutting edge. But sometimes I'll slip and I'll cut myself on that cutting edge. But I have to reach out to other people because the sun doesn't rise and set on Chris. I'm going to also connect with some other folks that actually know it and live it. So I'm constantly bringing those in. But you can't be so disruptive that you have this chaos circus of creativity. It has to be on a very thoughtful pattern to where when you actually unload the vision and the direction, you're also open for the dialogue. You're also allowing people to say, you're full of crap. Or, wow, let's say I'm going to stick with the agency. Chris, we appreciate that briefing. Here's an alternate way to think about it. I can't go, well, that isn't my way. It's the classic, I asked for a cheeseburger. They bring me filet mignon. Bring me filet mignon, assuming it fits in the budget. Don't sell me something I can't do. But if you bring me filet mignon, make sure you have my cheeseburger with it, and then we could decide together. Because I'll also say, I don't know what I don't know. Wow, for my input, you brought me that filet mignon. I never thought about that. So being open for that. So that's being creative, being able to shuck while others are jiving, but being open for another way to go about doing it. But just one other part of creativity, where I said frustrated creative, I hold myself to a standard for fit and finish. Not that I'm going to overwork a typeface, but to me, I'm looking to take our brand with a more stronger aesthetic. Good enough is not just good enough. Bikes have been around since 1890 something, right? I mean, two-wheel of something, certainly 1900s. Every single way a bike can be shot has been shot before. And when you lay up all that images, how are you going to stand out? Well, through the creative thought, the creative idea, and then that you also have to embrace even the look and the feel. And not that I say I'm going to shoot with Ridley Scott on a vernal equinox in the south of France and spend millions of dollars. It would be cool, but you have to do it in such a way that's going to break through to where people are going to go, wow, did you see that Kawasaki stuff? I haven't seen anything like that before. Or, man, they did it in such a fresh way. They did it in such an authentic way. And then they did it in such maybe an emotional way, as opposed to just get the bike, shoot it left, shoot it right. I have to have an idea that's bigger than just myself or my team. It's got to be big enough to where the customer is going to go, man, I got to get me one of those. And boy, I'd love to ride it there. Man, they get me. That takes a lot of time and effort to actually get to that level of creativity.
So that's a great, so you're on board with the artful. It's funny, Beth Comstock, she didn't use the term point, but when she was talking about innovation, she spent 25% of her time out of the office, often meeting with people outside of the company to get input on new stuff. So
that's about right.
Totally agree. That's part of being artful is that infinite curiosity and so forth. So we've covered courage and artfulness. The next is thoughtful, and we can't spend a lot of time on this, but this is an area that, and the big example I have in the book is Daniel Levetsky of Kind Snacks, and how he thinks about the brand doing kind things for the body, for the soul, for the world. And he will get on a subway, he'll see someone give up a seat for an old person or a pregnant lady, and he'll hand them 2 Kind bars and say, that was thoughtful of you. That was a kind thing of you to do. Here's one for you, and why don't you pay one forward when you see somebody else do something kind or thoughtful. I'm curious, in the context of your business, again, we don't have a lot of time to cover this, but where does thoughtfulness, and we could call a corporate social responsibility, where does that fit into your sort of marketing mix?
Well, I'll be as quick as I possibly can, and I'm not going to get into spiritual matters, but I'll just touch on it a little bit. Why am I here? I'm not here just to do marketing for Kawasaki. There's a bigger purpose in my life, certainly. And I know I'm passing through. I mean, if I'm lucky to get 75 years, 100 years, our life is but like a blade of grass, right? Compared to a time continuum. And at the end of the day, life is extremely short. So I realize what my real purpose here is people. My purpose is people, whether I'm connecting with them to sell a bike, and I'll try to do that the best I can. People, meaning my team. I realize servant leadership. I might have the call at the top and the team's here, but I got to reverse it, where I'm here to support my team on the top. And not only is it a bunch of attaboys, but I got to give them the tools to succeed, much like a baseball manager. He doesn't hit the ball and throw the ball, but he puts the players as best as he can in a position to be successful. Coaches them up. They're prepared. Yeah, you got to be born with a certain level of talent to hit the ball. The other part is, with this kind of servant leadership mentality, I take it very personal, because I'm here for such a short time that why are we doing this? Well, put food on the table for a family. I have 3 daughters, 20, 16, and 10. I'm here to do it for them as well. So it's not all about Chris. And then I realized that just as some other people were mentoring me, whether it be for years, well, I'm here to do that as well, because it's not all about Chris. And the other part, I might just run into someone. You said that little on the subway. I might just bump into someone for one time. In fact, and again, I'm saying this very humbly, there's a story from Joe DiMaggio, one of my favorite New York Yankee, Hall of Famer, center fielder from the Yankees. People would say to Joe, and he had a 13-year career interrupted by World War II, they said, Joe, you played all out all the time, even when you were sick. Some days you were good, some days you were off. Why did you play so hardcore dedicated? Because he really grinded it out. He retired at a somewhat young age of like 35, 36. He said, Chris, someone in the stands might be watching me for the first and only time. And I got to give my best effort every day. And I got to say that resonated with me. And again, everybody has a bad day. Joe took some days off. He was hurt, but he never gave his day off when he walked onto the field. I'm constantly being watched to find out if I'm full of crap by the people I work with and work for. And based on my personal beliefs, I'm not doing it for me. And people want to know, wow, is he really true? Is he really authentic? We have a saying, true to the core here for the brand, which means we're real, authentic, and legitimate. Well, I don't pride myself. I try to live by that. And again, I've made my mistakes and I'm going to learn from them, but I'm being watched every day. Oh, he's going to fall on his face. Well, if he does, how does he handle it? Oh, dude, is that cat really authentic? Is he really going to say and do what he says he's going to do? Is he really going to follow it up? Or is this all just a big sham? Well, I'm being watched every day. And much like Joe, I'm going to bring it every day. And in the last part, my Japanese friends, they're paying me a decent salary to do it. If I mail it in, I'm not going to last long, but I can't sleep with myself. Now, it all sounds too good to be true, but it's real because I'll take it home and then it's time for family. But when I come back here, work is my family. And I better deliver or they'll find somebody else. So that's the old ad guy. The client is going to replace me. But also, I'm here just to give back. The good Lord said, Chris, I give you some talents and some skills. Can you pass that on to somebody else? Because it ain't about you. And those few times, Drew, where I did lose my mind and I thought I was doing it good and I believed my own hype, sure as enough, I ran into the wall. But I had to get myself back up again. And that goes back to the whole Teddy Roosevelt, another guy that I looked up to, the man in the arena. I don't have time to get into that. But I'd rather go down swinging than go down just talking. I'll have the scars, but at least, and then this is the fun part, and I'll say this to the naysayers. I'm sorry, you didn't like 100 of my ideas. They all sucked. What was your one idea? Now, it comes across a little cocky, but sometimes you do have to stand up for yourself. I'm sorry, you don't like anything, but tell me, what was your one good idea? Let's talk about that. Anyways.
So, I have to say one of the reasons, and I appreciate you spending the time on that, the reason I'm doing these blabs is a chance for the students of marketing, the folks that might read the book in college, to do a deeper dive. And so I do think the proof is in the pudding here with you, and that you're thoughtfully spending time talking about your career with me, which I appreciate. It's thoughtful, but we are not going to have time to cover the last one, which is scientific. And because I know already that you have tracking studies in place, that you have real metrics, that you track the performance and brand health and all those good things. So I know you are a cool cat and have the cat's moniker on you. So I don't need to go into that. What I do need to do is I need to thank you for spending the better part of an hour with me to talk about building trust, how you can manage your career by really looking inside yourself and saying, what kind of person do I want to be? And then living up to that, which is what you did. And then saying, what kind of brand do I want to be? And then living up to that. Again, you can read about Chris and building trust in the CMO's periodic table. This has been episode 14 of Building Trust. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to turn off the recorder now, but thanks again, man. You rocked it.
Drew, honestly, it was an honor, and I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun, and high praise for you for taking a risk and doing it, being an author and going for it. I'm not blowing smoke. I mean, honestly, I look up to you in many, many ways, and I'm applauding you from the sideline. And again, thank you for taking the time to hear my story and sharing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.